Hey, so yeah, I thought this would be a better way to um, talk about the bust out hand from today. And I'm not going to cover any other hands. I'm just going to cover the bust out hand. And by no means am I a professional streamer or any of that. I would like to record more at the table, and I would eventually like to cover more hands, more poker material. Mind you, however, that I have an audience where it's a lot of people that don't play poker and they don't necessarily understand poker fully. And then I also have an audience to where they understand poker and play poker. So I think what I want to take a look at in this software is just sort of some what happened, but also some hypotheticals. So to better understand what we're looking at here is this is our poker table. And generally, it's going to be nine handed, just meaning nine people at the table. And here at the bottom, Derek, this is me. And these are the other players. And for all intents and purposes for this video, the player that we're playing the hand against, whether it's just a hand and we lose some chips or win or a bust out, we label them villain. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't make, nothing like that. That's just terminology. Villain. And then for us, it's either our name or hero. So that's why it's labeled that way. And all these other seats for this video, they're not going to matter. So what we're going to look at here is the actual bust out hand and what happened. So notice that the action starts here on player one. They're UTG, or under the gun. That just is poker terminology for the blinds are coming next. So they're about to be hit by the blinds, and also they're first to act. And notice that the blind level that we're on a small blind of 1,000 and a big blind of 2,000 with a 2,000 big blind ante. So usually in tournaments nowadays, when you're in the big blind, so this player here, they're paying 2,000. They're also putting 2,000 into the middle because it's the big blind ante. Back in the day, it was an antiquated system where the player in the big blind would pay the 2,000, and then every single person at the table had to put in an ante. Um, might be 100 or 500, whatever would equal up to the sort of the big blind ante. Now it's easier because every player doesn't have to put in an ante. The dealer doesn't have to sit there and wait for chips. The big blind player puts in the sort of ante for all the other players. So when we look at it, the big blind is 2,000. Technically, it's 4,000 because 2,000 of it goes in the middle in the pot, and that stays. It's gone, period. The 2,000 that is in front of the big blind or the 1,000 that's in front of the small blind, they can change that bet. They can't take it back, but they can change it. So if something happens to where the bet they're facing is all of a sudden 4,000, they just have to add 3,000 to it in the small blind or 2,000 to it in the big blind. But if they decide to fold, then they lose those chips. Blinds, they're chips you're committing blindly, and they rotate around the table to the left, so counterclockwise. And the reason for blinds is because it forces action and it forces people to play. Otherwise, without blinds, be sitting there all day just waiting for, pocket aces, pocket aces. The game would just be unplayable and it would be too slow, thus the blinds. So a lot of times when you hear me talking about blinds and how many I have, that's just what it means. It means the big blind and essentially how many rotations around the table. And the fewer big blinds you have, the few or the less wiggle room that you have. So when you're setting on, say, 10 big blinds, that's 10 rotations around the table. That's essentially, we're going to say 10 rotations around to where we have to pick up a hand in order to make something happen. So we start to run out of room. versus if we had 100 big blinds, that's 100 rotations around the table, and that is considered deep. All right, so now that that's out of the way, let's take a look. And this is the actual bust out hand as it happened. So notice that the action is going to begin on player one under the gun, and they're going to fold. They're first to act. Now the action is going to be on player two because it goes counterclockwise. He's going to fold. And then now the action is on me. So with the action on me, with the big blind being 2,000, I like to go about 2 times the big blind. Sometimes 2.5 times the big blind. It really just depends on my stack size. But here we're setting with roughly 38 big blinds, so I really just like 2x. So we'll say 4K. So I'm gonna bet. It won't show my cards. It used to, and I think this app is being updated. We'll see them at the end. But for all intensive purposes, I have pocket nines. So I'm going to open up the action with my pocket nines. And again, I mentioned earlier, being as short as I am with 38 big blinds, I think that opening here, jamming here, nines are going to be about the bottom of the hands that I'm going to choose to jam with. And I'm going to say sevens. I may not even open sevens here. So let's say I have 2 sevens. I may choose to fold those, and I believe I would because they're just too weak. Eights, they're probably too weak. So that's why I say nines are kind of at the bottom of my range. If they were tens, then that's sort of a layup. Jacks, layup. So nines will be sort of the bottom of what I like here. So I decide to make a bet. So I'm setting on 72K, or again, roughly 38 big blinds or 38 rotations around the table. And I'm going to bet 4,000. And the player to my left, my immediate left, they have me covered by a lot. They have about 250,000 chips. And you really don't want the player on your left to have more chips than you because they're always acting after you. And when that happens, it can put you in some uncomfortable situations. So you would rather have more chips, but this is just the way it ends up in tournament poker. So in this case, the person beside of us, he has 250K in chips, and he does have us pretty well covered. So he's going to choose to re-raise me, which is called a 3-bet. It comes from kind of an antiquated poker terminology. Technically, it's the 3rd bet, so that's why it's called a 3-bet. But really, he's re-raising my raise, but it's called a 3-bet. So he 3-bets to 15,000, which is pretty standard. It's about 3 times, and a little bit more on it, but it's about 3 times what I bet. So that's pretty standard for what his 3-bet size would be. And then it's going to continue around the table, and everyone else is going to fold. The small blind is going to fold. The big blind is going to fold. And as I mentioned earlier, they lose that 1,000 and that 2,000. They don't get that back. Those are blinds. They're blindly committed before cards are even dealt. So that's why big blinds matter so much in poker, because you have to commit chips when you're in the big blind, because that is going to move around the table. There'll be big blind next. There'll be big blind next. Big blind next here for me after every full hand has been played. So big blind forces the action. And again, the less you have, the worse. All right, so it's going to fold back to me. And the decision that we're going to have is really, what do we want to do with these nines? And we have to think about what can happen. And if we think about what can happen, we can either jam all in with our remaining 68K. We can bet all of that. We could call his 15,000 and see what happens with the first 3 cards coming out. Or we could re-raise him, which would be called a 4-bet, and do something like 45K. But I don't like a 4-bet here. Doing something like a 4-bet, 45K, we're sort of pot committing ourselves anyway. And I don't see a difference between a 4-bet and an all in. Some could argue, yeah, if you 4-bet and then he jams or goes all in, like 5-bets you, your nons aren't good. But there's that I don't necessarily that's not necessarily true, and I think that's what we're going to be able to find out, um, because I'll walk you through those decisions. So for me, I'm thinking about with my two nons, I'm thinking about, okay, this person, what range of hands? Not I'm not trying to put them on an exact hand. I'm not trying to say they have aces, they have kings, they have jacks. What I'm trying to do is compile a scale of hands that have me beat and a scale of hands that I beat or that I'm ahead of. And when we start to think about hands that he can have, then absolutely he could have pairs better than nons. He could have tens, jacks, queens, kings, aces. So that's 5 hands. But also, there's just so many hands that he could have that he's going to 3-bet us with, where it could be ace X. And when I say X, I mean like ace 10, ace jack, some ace 5, some of the more kind of weirder ace X hands. Um, he could have, I'm going to say ace king, ace queen at a very high frequency. And those are things that we have to start thinking about. So also, he could be doing this with, pocket eights, maybe pocket sevens. So all of a sudden, we're in a situation where we're going to be a lot of times we're going to be in what we're going to call a coin flip, or we're going to be dominated, meaning they're going to have jacks or tens or aces. A lot of times here they're going to have ace queen, ace king, and I think that's the way that we have to think about it. We have to think about, okay, is there a portion of their range that we're comfortable getting it all in against? And the answer here for me was yes. So what I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to choose to essentially 4-bet all in for my remaining 68K, making it 72K in total. And then the action's going to go on our um, person to the left, our villain, and he's going to call me, and he snap called me, which just means like they pretty much instantly flick the chip in there, and a lot of times it's a bad sign because you're immediately thinking, oh God, they have aces or kings, like we're dead. But at the same time, he ended up having ace king, and ace king here for him is a snap call. So it wasn't as bad as I thought when he turned it over. So now we're all in, and this is going to be called a race or a coin flip, because what happens is essentially, since I have nons and he has two overcards to those nons, the ace and the king, it wouldn't happen, but just pretend he had jack 10. It would still be a coin flip or a race, because I have two cards, the minor pair, the nons, under the two cards that he has. So it would never happen, but just a pretend world. If I had fives, two fives here, and he called with 6-7, it's a coin flip or a race, because he has to hit his 6 or he has to hit his 7 for him to win the pot. And I just have to hold, and the board basically coming clean. So what we're looking for here is I have nines, he has ace king, and I really wish, I think again they're updating this tool. It's changed a lot. Normally shows the cards. We'll see them later, but it's just not showing them right now. But yeah, so I have nines, he has ace king, and what we want when the 5 cards come, we don't want to see an ace, we don't want to see a king. And as long as that doesn't happen, then we'll double up to 140K. So the first 3 cards come out, we're in great shape. 3, 4, 8, we're still in the lead. He didn't hit his ace, he didn't hit his king. The next card's going to come out. It's going to be a jack. Doesn't help, doesn't hit his ace, doesn't hit his king. And then unfortunately, we have one more card to come, the river. He has three aces and three kings left in the deck. As far as we know, those could be dead or folded by other players. We can't know that, so we just use the assumption that they're still alive. So he has three aces, three kings that he can hit in order to beat me. And the way that works on the river is we take six cards and we times it by two. So 6 times 2 is 12. So he has 12% chance at this point of beating me with one more card to come. And if we're talking about the ace specifically, there's only three aces left in the deck. Then 3 times 2 is 6%. He only has a 6% chance to hit that ace. And sometimes it comes. You have to win races or these coin flips in tournaments. So the final card comes, and it is the ace on the river. Probably the most painful place for it to come. You'd rather just get it on those first three, the flop, and the pain's kind of over, versus dodging four cards or good. Oh, yeah, sweet, we're about to double up. And then all of a sudden, the last card to fall is, that ace or king or whatever card beats you. That really, really stinks. But it's okay. I think I'm okay with the hand, and I'm okay with the way we played here with these hands. Again, I just wish that we could see the cards, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense not being able to see them. It's like no matter how much I click on here, it's not showing them. Let me try something. All right, so what I've done here, just to sort of compensate for this tool being broken at the moment, is use this other sort of snapshot of here's what we have. So again, pre-flop, I have two nines and he has ace king. So this is just more of a visual. And again, as all five cards come out, for me to hold, I can't have an ace hit, I can't have a king hit. For him to win, he has to have an ace hit, he has to have a king hit. So I'm just using this for visual, just because the other version's not showing the cards for some reason. Maybe they'll fix the tool. So yeah, so we lose the hand here, and like I say, I'm okay with that. I have no problem with it. I like the way that I played it. Let's talk about some alternatives, like just some hypotheticals when we look at this hand, because there's some other ways that we could have played it or thought about playing it, and I just don't like it. And I'll show you why. So here again, just so now you want to work. So now we're going to do this again, but we're going to sort of pretend this time around. So what we're going to do here is, let's just pretend for a moment that the same action occurs for a bit. So these players fold. I still bet my 4,000, and our villain still bets 15,000, and everyone else folds. Now, this is where it comes into play, where we think about, okay, what if we just call his three bet versus going all in? It's not ideal with nons, because the problem is that a lot of flops, the first three cards to come out, they're going to be bad. Like there's going to be a lot of flops where we're just going to have to give up and fold, and we're essentially, just giving away 15K. So a lot of flops aren't going to help us, and then some flops we're just going to naturally end up there anyway. Whereas going all in right here, we do have a little leverage where it creates a little bit of fold equity if he had a weaker hand. He happened to have ace king, but he doesn't always have ace king there. He could have king queen or ace jack, and they're likely to fold. So just continuing through the hypothetical, this is going to be a situation. Let's pretend that instead of going all in, we just call his 15K bet. That's going to leave us 57K behind, and we're going to go to the flop. And in this particular hypothetical, this is a flop where we get a favorable board. Pretty much the flop that happened anyway. So 3, 4, 8. And this is sort of a situation where we have an overpair to the board with the nons. We still don't know our villain's range, and they're going to continuation bet at a high frequency, meaning that regardless of what hands they have, like we said before, ace king, pocket sevens, jacks, king queen, they're going to do what's called a continuation bet, just really just betting, even though they don't have a made hand right now, they just have ace high, because oftentimes the continuation bet is going to take it down. And that's sort of what could happen here. Not with this particular flop, I don't think, um, in the moment. So let's just say in this hypothetical that I chose to call pre-flop instead of going all in. Now on this flop, I'm going to have to check, which just means I'm not betting, I'm not folding, I'm just checking my option, meaning I'm not taking an action. I'm checking it over to the person to my left and opting not to bet. Now, if he checks, then the next card will come and it'll be back on me. But if he doesn't check, then the action will come back on to me because then I have to make a decision. So let's say in this hypothetical world, he's going to continuation bet or range bet, which would be about 15 to 20K. And we're sort of in this situation where now the pot is 50K and we have 57K in chips. So we pretty much have a stack to pot ratio of a 1. We have just as much in our stack as is in the pot. And if we go all in here, then we just really don't have that much fold equity against this player. Because if we go all in here, then he's going to have to call roughly what, like 42,000 more to continue. So we just don't have much fold equity here. And there's, I don't think, a world where we then say call. We would probably more likely go all in, and he's going to call us anyway. But again, continuing with the hypotheticals, let's just say that we call here and we just call us 15,000. Now the turn's going to come. Now the jack, which arrived like it did in the actual run out. Now we're sort of uncomfortable because that jack hits part of his range, the ace jack, king jack, um, queen jack. Like there's so many parts of his range where that jack is a good card for him. And now we no longer have top pair. A jack beats us. And we're finally in a situation where the pot is more than what we have. The pot is 65K and we have 42K behind. So we'd have to check again because we're out of position. Position is everything in poker. When you're out of position, you're acting first. When you're in position, you're acting last. And position matters because the later you are in acting, the more information you get to gather. So me being in an early position, I don't get to gain as much information as the villain because he's last to act. So he gets to see what I do first. So in this hypothetical, he's probably going to just go ahead and put me all in on the turn. And then I'm sitting here sort of like in no man's land, uncomfortable, still have no read on his range, not able to cap it, not able to compress it. He still has the entirety of his range. Every card combination we talked about earlier, he still has those. So we're just in an uncomfortable situation, and we sort of have to decide if we want to call or if we want to fold in this hypothetical. And I think here you almost have to fold, but also you have so much committed that you may probably have to call and see what happens. So I would say here in this hypothetical, we call and the ace comes on the river, we lose anyway. So it just, not that it matters, it's just really another way we could have played it, which would have resulted in the same result. But the most important thing that I want you to take away from here is the fact that we chose to go all in to avoid this exact situation where we end up at a flop, the first 3 cards, and we're just sort of allowing him to continuation bet. And thank God here it's a good board and we can continue. But there's going to be so many flops that are horrible for us that we can't do anything else. Um, One more hypothetical here, and I think this will sort of paint the best picture. Everything's going to be the same here. Um, for some reason, it doesn't want to show our cards again. But gotten used to that. So here we're going to take the same action, and we're going to raise to 4,000. He's going to do his 15,000 raise, and everyone else is going to fold. And in this hypothetical, it comes back to us, and we call instead of going all in. Now here's the situation where you're wanting to avoid. This flop comes out. This isn't the one that happened. This is a hypothetical pretend flop. But now we have nines. He has ace king, and this is a horrible flop for pocket nines. We lose to an ace. We lose to a 10. There's two cards to a straight. So like ace, king, queen, jack, 10. So if he has like king, queen, he has a straight draw. There's two hearts on board, ace, three of hearts. If he has king jack of hearts, king queen of hearts, then we're up against a flush draw. But most importantly, if he has an ace, we're beat, and if he has a 10, we're beat. And most often we're going to get horrible flops and not good flops like we saw. So again, we'd have to check. He'd bet is 15,000, and we're just going to have to fold. And yeah, we'd have 57K left in this hypothetical, but that's being results oriented, and that's also just sort of knowing the results and what's going to happen. So again, just going back to what actually happened, I'm happy with the decisions. Really, really wish it would show the hands. They'll fix it eventually. Um, but yeah, just to play it through again, we choose this all in sizing after he re-raises us pre-flop. We choose all in because again, I think there's going to be way too many flops that are going to be bad for our nons, and we're going to have to fold. And nons, again, being at the bottom of our sort of all in range, I think we can go all in here. We still have some fold equity. And this particular player beside of me, I had seen him, make some three bets, make some calls, with worse hands, ace jack, pocket fives in one hand. So that even allows me to give him a wider range or even more hands that he could possibly have. But really, overall, what I'm thinking about, sorry, I had a little glitch there. But yeah, so overall, really, what I'm thinking about is whenever we're pre-flop and we're choosing to go all in or call the raise, really what it comes down to is there's 16 combinations of ace king. There's 16 combinations of ace queen. So just meaning there's 16 combinations in the way that ace king can be dealt. There's 16 combinations in the way that ace queen can be dealt. So that's 32 hands right there that we're ahead of. We have to hold, but that we're ahead of. And then if you put in some pocket pairs, eights, seven, sixes, whatever, then you could see how that scale just starts to really come down and be heavier versus the hands that truly dominate us. Then it's going to be without counting combos or combinatronics. Like we're going to say tens, jacks, queens, kings, aces. So really, five hands we're worried about, and then all these other hands that we're either dominating or that we're flipping against. And again, remember, it's called a flip because each person really in this exact situation, when one person has a pair, like nines, and the other person has two cards that are over the nines that don't match, then it's a race or a coin flip because it's pretty much 50-50 in terms of the math and the statistics. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the hand. I'll try to do more. I'll try to do better, and just kind of getting in the groove of recapping some things so that you guys can actually see some things. And again, just remember, I have an audience that is a lot of like non-poker players and some poker players.